Welcome back to Experience on Air Sing series. Chad, welcome to. We're so happy to have you today. Thank you for making time for us.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Of course. So, I already kind of gave you a little rundown on how this works. So, I'm going to just hit you with the question. Who is Chad Smith?
Yeah. My name's Chad Smith. I've been a realtor for 19 years, just about. And what I've basically done is built a business where I put God first, then my wife, then my kids, then the business. That wasn't the plan when I got started. But a couple of weeks after I got my real estate license, somebody invited me to church. I hadn't been to church since I was a little kid. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't have made it through real estate. I wouldn't have made it through that first year. I wouldn't have my wife, my kids, this career without getting that foundation first. And so that's who I am. I operate in everything I do on that priority structure, and everything else has happened from there.
Oh, that's amazing. So when did you start in real estate?
2004. So, yeah.
2004. So what made you say, like, well, now let me get into real estate? What was that? What did that look like? What were you doing before, and what made the decision to get into real estate?
Yeah. So my dream growing up was to be a famous guitar player.
Awesome.
Okay. So had a soccer scholarship to college, finished my freshman year, met a drummer. We thought we were going to, do big things. And I walked into my coach's office and said, "Hey, I quit. I'm going to be a rock star." That's basically it. Yeah. And, he was like, "Man, I was going to give you more money next year. Does that change your mind?" I said, "No." And so over those next couple of years, we got signed to a local label here locally. We started playing in Deep Ellum, playing around TCU. And we got signed to a local label. We developed a following. Somebody thought they were going to get rich off of us. So as a 20-year-old, they flew me, the band, and 40 of our fans out to Hollywood. And I played in front of all the major record labels for like our shot at the Whiskey A Go-Go as a 20-year-old. Wow. But when we didn't get signed, I just spiraled out of control after that. So by the time I was 23, I was complete rock bottom. I couldn't even hold a job. And so I kind of cried out for help at that point. I knew I was in big trouble. Mm-hmm. And my uncle, who lives in Kentucky, reached out to me right at that time. He said, "Why don't you come live with me for a while?" And I moved out there, and he was 44 at the time, and he had retired from passive income in real estate.
Wow.
So it was at that point I pivoted and moved back to Texas, saved up some money to get into real estate school. And that's what led me to get into real estate, was really the idea of freedom through passive income. Mm-hmm. But I didn't know anything about real estate. Mm-hmm. I mean, I didn't even know what a title company was. I lived in an apartment. I never made more than $22,000 in a year. So I thought, well, I'll get my license and start filling in the blanks.
Wow, that's amazing. And so your uncle, was he a real estate investor or was he a real estate agent? What kind of passive income was he getting?
Yeah, so he was not a real estate agent, still isn't. He started a civil engineering company, kind of realizing that Toyota was about to put their biggest plant in that part of the country in a town nearby.
Yes.
And so he was out of college, got together with a partner. They started a civil engineering firm. 3 or 4 years into that, he realized, I'll never be able to retire off a salary. And so he started to buy triple net leases and commercial properties as that city was springing up from all those jobs.
Awesome.
And so it took him 9 years. But in 9 years, from age, 35 to 44, he had accumulated enough property that he was able to live off the passive income. He sold his company and just was doing whatever he wanted.
Well, that's amazing. So basically that was enough for young Chad, from playing soccer to, being in a band to being like, all right, if all this isn't working, then I'm going to go get my real estate license. And did you, like you said, you didn't even know what a title company was. So you were 24 at the time?
That's 26.
26?
Yeah.
So at what point did you, because, everyone knows the first 2 years of real estate are kind of tough. And obviously your uncle wasn't an agent, so it's not like he could guide you. So take me back to 26-year-old Chad trying to learn about real estate. How did that kind of progression happen?
Okay, so my goal right off the bat, Rookie of the Year. My goal was to be Rookie of the Year, and I came nowhere close at all. I think I sold one house my first 6 months. I wanted to do well. I knew that I needed to keep a positive attitude, but I had no idea how to do that. So I was reading Think and Grow Rich right around the time I got my real estate license. And there was a man that went through real estate school with me. And so right in those first couple of weeks, he walked up to me. He said, "Hey, man, I'm not trying to push anything on you. But this is a CD of a men's conference. And I see you're reading all these books, and I can see you're trying to figure things out. So just listen to this. Let me know what you think. Or if you don't like it, you don't even have to tell me." And he gave me the CD. And the title of the CD was The Home Run Man, from a series called Men of Destiny of a local pastor. So I got in my car that day, was driving over to my girlfriend's apartment, and that CD was like my first encounter in life with what I would call biblical strength, biblical manhood. And it just talked about having priorities for life and someone that lives a life of honor. And how when you get all these things lined up in the right direction, not only could you succeed, but you could succeed long term.
Yeah.
And based on what had happened to me as a teenager, watching my parents get divorced, and then going on like this shooting star journey already as, at 20 years old, I didn't want to be a shooting star again. I didn't want to take 5 steps forward and then 6 steps backwards. Yeah. And I pulled over on the shoulder of the road that day, and I bawled my eyes out. I drove over to my girlfriend's apartment, put the CD in the CD player, and she said, "What's this?" I said, "It's a preacher." And, just listen.
Yeah.
And I remember watching her. She went into the bedroom or into her closet and tidied up the closet, went into her bathroom, was cleaned up. And she walked over there to the player, and I thought she was going to turn it off, and she turned the volume up. Wow. So basically that day, a couple weeks after I got my real estate license, I committed to my girlfriend, this is who I'm going to become. Yeah. And so fast forward today, we're married. We've been married for 16 years. We have 4 children. And so those first couple of years of real estate, it didn't click for me. I didn't have a real estate agent mentor. But what I did find was my mentor for my model for life, for marriage, for raising children. And I got all of that built. And so about the time that the Great Recession happened, 2008, they had a leadership change at the office I was part of. And the guy walked in a training right as the Great Recession was started. He said, "I sold 190 homes last year, and if you do exactly what I teach in this class, you cannot fail." And there I was, 3.5 years in, and it was either become great at this or go start over somewhere. And I thought, well, he's valid. He's actually done it. And that's got to be easier than what I've been doing the last 3 years, like getting my life right. Yeah. And so I replaced my wife's income right as my first daughter was born. She never went back to have a job. Obviously, she does a ton because she's there with my 4 children. But I replaced her income in 2008. And then when the market dropped 40% in 2009, I went from making $58,000 in 2008 to $165,000 in 2009, which was a lot more money back then. And became the individual agent of that office for that year of several hundred agents.
That's amazing.
Fell in love with leadership and went on from there.
Oh, that's amazing. And, I think, just kind of talking to you, just getting to know you right now, I can tell, what you're practicing is kind of like really living it, practicing what you're preaching, like you're being dedicated. So that's amazing. So what did that person say that, changed? That you saw that they were 190 homes sold. Yeah. Like, what was that big takeaway that they said that was like, oh, I'm going to apply this? Was it like a mentorship that they kind of offered, or was it just kind of, just go do the work? What was that moment that was changing for you?
Sure. So there were several things right there whenever I met that mentor that have stuck with me. One was when I met him, I went, I don't know that I need to be here because I know these people, this was subprime days, and they were doing all kinds of stuff without licenses. And I said, at that time, when he took that office over, there were 65 agents in the office. The office went on to go from 65 agents to, at one point, I think it had around 600 to 650 agents. Yeah. So it went from being on the international shutdown list to the most profitable office for that brand in the world.
That's crazy.
And so I was there the whole time, and that's part of my journey. But one of the things that when I met him, what I explained was, I don't know that I need to be here. Do you or anybody you know have a real estate license and they have passive income? And he took a piece of paper, and right in the middle of it, he said, top realtor. He said, what I've found is that if you're the top agent in your market and you're controlling listings, you're dominating your market area, then all your opportunities flow from that. And he drew circles around the center circle. And he said, I own 10 rental properties. I own a property management company. I own this franchise office. I have this investment. I have this investment. And then he wrote how much money he makes per month in each one of those. And I went, okay,
Yeah.
I'll follow that.
Yeah.
And so I've lived that out,
Awesome.
He had done 190 transactions as an agent. And, I'm sure we'll get there in a minute, but we've sold over 340 homes in a year. And, several of us on the team are investors, and we have multiple streams of income. So that was one of the big things. The other thing that I learned from him was behavior, understanding behavior, and understanding setting expectations, and just teaching people how to think.
Yeah.
And then making conversation about the other person. And so you do that as an agent, as a fiduciary, but then you also do that in leadership too. So those are some of the things that I learned from him that really have stuck with me through the years.
Yeah, it seems like you're kind of still using that to this day, and it's kind of like, it's kind of like grown you to where you are now. So can you kind of tell us about what you're doing now, and where you're at, what you're doing? Would love to hear about that.
Yeah. Well, I'm a big picture guy. I can deal with the details if I have to.
Yeah.
But I want to understand principles.
Yeah.
If I can find out what the principles are, I can repeat the principles.
Yeah.
So whether that be the way that you treat people as a fiduciary in real estate by putting them first, that works in marriage.
Yeah.
That works when you're leading your team. So I'm always looking for those types of principles. And I mentioned we built the team up. We basically had our best year in a row, 17 years in a row.
That's amazing.
So we stayed at that same brokerage for 17 years. And one of the principles that I learned while I was there is that our true leader wants to never become a limiting factor to someone.
Yeah.
So the key people that are in my world in business, the day I met them, I said, I'm not afraid of you being great. And I commit to you that I will never become a limiting factor to you. And so after 17 years of having our best year ever and kind of following the roadmap for expansion that company had laid out, we have a very unique culture. And like you said, I kind of live what I've learned. And what I saw was that would not be scalable to have for me to go try to find a Chad Smith in 5 cities in DFW and then go to San Antonio and then go to Houston and then go to Oklahoma City and keep spreading out was not possible.
Yeah.
So I started working on how can I have to keep going. I have to keep growing. I don't believe in dying.
Yeah.
You're either growing or you're dying, and I can't stand still, and I can't become a limiting factor. I've got to keep going. So just working through that, searching for models, what I realized was we have an environment that's changing people's lives. And what we figured out how to do was we turned our morning meeting. So the only thing I do in the business now is I lead a morning meeting from 8:30 to 9:15.
Daily or weekly?
Daily.
Daily. Wow.
That's the part I love doing. I haven't worked with buyers in years. I probably list 1 or 2 houses a year.
Friends,
the rest
personal
of it,
friends.
Yeah. The rest of it goes to everyone else. And I have 2 agents on the team that actually lead the other agents on the team. So the only thing I do is that morning meeting and then a 1-hour meeting with my leaders and a 1-hour meeting on Wednesdays. So those are the 3 things that I do. But the morning meeting is the more daily consistent thing. So what we did is we took that morning meeting and we turned it into a broadcast.
Awesome.
Okay. And then we took everything that I'd ever learned in business and everything I'd ever learned at church and just how to live out my faith. And we combined it all into a linear format and put it in a learning-based software. And it was around 2020, the guys were coming to me and wanting me to look at different real estate models. And what I decided to do was, rather than go become my own broker, because a lot of my friends have done that, I don't want to be a broker.
Yeah.
I have no desire
Makes sense.
whatsoever to be a broker. So we moved our license to EXP, which is a cloud-based broker, which means we can attract people from all around the world, and I don't have to deal with the brokerage side of things. And then we created our own coaching and training company that's standalone from the licensing authorities, anything. It's just a coaching company. It's just
amazing.
a website, right? And so what we do now is we broadcast those live trainings daily. And if someone wants to stay at their brokerage, or if they're not they're not a licensed agent and they want to be part of it, they can pay to have access to the training, one-time fee, lifetime access.
That's great.
And then if someone is a licensed agent and they want to partner with us and get access to all of it, the live training and the website for free, they can join us at EXP. And so that's what we're doing now. And we're adding people daily.
That's amazing. And so what is the, what is the training called?
It's called The Real Solution.
The Real Solution.
Yeah.
So is it applicable to multiple different businesses, or do you think it's more real estate based, or?
Right now it's specified to real estate. But I've already said I'm a principals guy. So I already have people that are getting in there and like I have a really good friend who's a financial advisor. And, somewhere down the line, we'll probably just take it and then cater it towards different businesses.
Yeah, because the main principles are the same in every business, whether you're a mortgage lender, whether you're a real estate officer or like a financial advisor, you have to kind of do the same thing, have a fiduciary duty. And so when do you feel like that light bulb clicked for you when you were like, wait, this is all the same? When did that happen for you?
I have a document. I was in one of my coaching things that I was in for coaching for entrepreneurs. They gave me this worksheet, and it's basically where if you're an entrepreneur and you constantly have ideas, in order to not bog your team down on chasing rabbits and just, kind of shiny object syndrome, you test your idea on yourself.
Gotcha.
So it was January of 2021, and I mapped it all out. And so I think it was January 13th of 2021, and I laid it out like, this is what the real solution is. This is the impact it will make. This is the products and the services that we'll create, and this is how we'll know if it's successful or not.
Yeah.
So that would have been the time.
Yeah, that's amazing. And it sounds like it was such an impactful day because you still remember the date, you know? So, how would you say it's progressed and stuff like that? Like, what would you say, like, you said you'd know if it's making an impact. So how is it?
Well, I would say the process of creating it was more difficult. It's probably the hardest thing I've ever done in business. To take everything you've ever learned, and I haven't seen a real estate agent training yet that does it this way, but it basically starts where if you were a brand new agent, here's like the 12 biggest dominoes that you would have to knock over to reach the level where you could sell one home a month. And then to get to 3 homes a month, here are the next modules that you'd have to master. Yeah. And then by the time somebody as a real estate agent gets to 36 homes a year, they can sell 2 or 3 homes a month. Almost every single one of them can't go past that unless they decide that they're going to build leverage into their life, whether it's people, systems, or tools, or a combination of all of that. So the training from that point on, the training is basically, here's how you create a multi-decade vision map. And then here's a template for you to plug it. Here's mine, and here's how I did it. And then here's the questions you need to ask yourself to build your own vision map. And then here is a lesson on building out your own mission, vision, values, and purpose, and then also building out your core values. Yeah. Because the only way you go long-term and build a real estate business and keep the best talent is you have to have a set of core values that you hire and fire by. They're not just pretty pictures that you put on the wall and just words that nobody pays attention to. Like, I literally treat people according to those 8 core values. And the only time that they'll get it loud for me is if someone's violating those 8 core values.
Yeah.
But I'll literally make decisions on whether who needs to stay in the world based on those 8 core values. So I give the training on how you can establish that for yourself. And then from there, we go into how to add ancillary businesses and how to build multiple streams of income, basically horizontal income. Your real estate agent commission is vertical.
Yeah.
And if you stop selling, it'll drop.
Yep.
So what happens if instead of having one paycheck, you have 37 paychecks from different areas? So that's what the second part of the training is. Then we go into what does modern lead generation look like in 2023? Because you've got it basically at this point, your business is your database. You have to communicate with your sphere. You need to have some sort of outbound prospecting and automation along with that. You're probably going to have to play the ads game.
Yep.
And if you don't know how to do it, then you're going to pay $300 a lead on Zillow,
Yep.
which is unsustainable. And then on top of all of that, there should be a content creation strategy where you're building your content library and then you're sharing that to everyone in all of those different avenues. So we train on that. And then the last section is what I call faith at work. And so I'm transparent. This is my journey. And so I give anybody that wants it the tools that I've implemented in my walk, in my faith walk, so that if anybody wants to model that, they can as well.
Yeah, no, that's amazing because, a lot of times people are like, kind of, when they get success, they don't want to share because it's like, but, I think a little bit of your faith is the reason why you want to share. If people can help, like, why not,
Yeah, I think you said that well. And I think maybe the reason I'm like that is because I already know that I couldn't do it in my own strength. Mm-hmm. And so I'm not really taking any credit for any of these things that have happened in my life.
Yeah.
So why would I try to hide it from anyone else? And so I'm going to share on the practical side everything that we do. But then the reason it's called The Real Solution is a good friend of mine around 2010 came up to me and went, "Man, how is all this happening to you?" Because the meltdown was happening and I was just climbing.
Yeah.
And he said, "I'm going to take you to lunch." So we go to lunch. We sit down and he goes, "Okay, how did you do it?" And I said, "Do you want the Keller Williams answer or do you want the real solution?" And so that's where the name came.
That's awesome. And so, yeah, because I think like at a lot of places, especially like, that you get lost in this, like, oh, this is how it's always been done. And so, it takes a challenge, like step away. And so like, what was that like, stepping away from what you've known for so long? You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. Like when we left after 17 years.
Yeah.
It was fun. It was exciting. And it was harder than I thought it would be in terms of, we moved 20 people.
Yeah.
We moved.
That's not easy.
Yeah. Now, we did great in terms of the production kept running and all those types of things. I think that the part that was challenging was I was in a transformation period too, because I went from being this real estate team operator on this journey to become like a content creator and a course creator. Yeah. And I had figured out how to be a top agent and I had figured out how to lead other agents to become very good. But how do I take all of that that's inside of me and then basically simplify it all and modulize it all so that I could put it in a really clear format so that anyone could come in and that those modules would be done so professionally and effectively that they would be working for me 24/7, 365. Yeah. And that was a big journey.
Yeah, no, and I think you said it like, competition, it's natural, right? Like, like we've been, in brokerages, we've been taught to compete against this agent. Oh, we have more listings or we have more closed sales and stuff like that. So what was that moment where you were like, oh, I have nothing to prove to anyone else. I don't have anything to compete with anyone else. You kind of mentioned it was 2016. It was a listing appointment. Do you want to touch on what happened or?
Yeah, I think that's a really great thing to share here. So I mentioned that the goal was Rookie of the Year, right? And I didn't even come close to it. But then for many years, the stated goal was to become the number one agent in the history of that office. Mm-hmm. Well, by the time that I got there, instead of there being 65 agents or 125 agents, there were 600 agents.
Yeah.
But by the time our team was kind of somewhere in that maybe like
Top 3.
5th place to 10th place, or maybe top 3 to 7, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
By the time we got there, I realized I have absolutely no competition.
Yeah.
The only thing that I'm doing on a daily basis is competing against myself and working on executing our perfect day in real estate. Yeah. And so the day that we won top team in the office, I actually stood up in front of the office when we accepted the award. And I said, I'm not competing against you. And I'm not your competition. And so the only thing that matters is how are you thinking and how are you executing on your plan? Yeah. And so in terms of stepping out of production, the same type of thing was true. Basically, if you're going to build a real estate team, you have to figure it out first. Mm-hmm. You know, you have to be a top listing agent. Yep. If you're going to truly build a real estate agent team. And then, so you go on this journey where you start to let go of everything in the business, starting with the least dollar productive activities all the way down to the most dollar productive activities. So, you know, in the beginning it was listing coordination and transaction coordination. And then eventually it was buyers. And then there was a point in 2014 or 15 where I looked and there were 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 agents all lead generating for 2 hours a day. And I went, okay, they're all doing more than I can do in a 2-hour period. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to stop lead genning with everybody for 2 hours in the morning, and I'm going to start working on these bigger things. Yep. And so then I stepped out of lead gen. And then it was around 2015, 2016. At that point, I had a couple guys that had been with me for 4 or 5 years, 6 mm-hmm. years at that point. And I walked out of $1 million listing I had just taken, and I just kind of said, thanks, Father, thank you for helping me become so good at this, and I have nothing left to prove. And so I went back to my top 2 guys, and I said, all right, you're going to follow me on all these listing appointments. We're going to record the listing presentation, and you're going to say it as good or better than me. And you're going to get to the point where the only way you lose a listing or you don't take a listing is because you decide you're not going to take the listing. Mm-hmm. And so we started that process, and from about 2017, 2016, half of 2016, and then 2017 on, I was out of production. But I think one of the keys to point out here is that I've seen it happen over and over and over again where the lead agent steps out of production and then they stop showing up to the office. Yeah. Well, it's just a matter of time and the whole thing is going to blow up.
Yeah.
The whole thing has got to be going somewhere. Mm-hmm. And they've got to know that you're all in. And they've got to know that you're there to equip and to empower and to create more and more opportunity for everyone. So as I stepped out of each one of those phases, I was constantly looking for and even working to keep everything consistent, because the consistent things had to happen every day while simultaneously swinging for the fences on all this bigger stuff.
Yeah, because I think one thing you said is you're either growing or dying. So yeah. I think that you kind of probably live by that. That's what's helped you have growth each single year. Because, I mean, you know, think about all the numbers that you're hitting. It's difficult. And at a certain point, it's just like, how do we do more than this? How do we do more than this? Yeah. So, yeah, obviously, like, you know, you said it's not sustainable, like just throwing a bunch of money at Zillow. You know, Zillow has the prices have gone up so much and they only keep getting more and more expensive.
Right.
I was talking to an agent today. They said, oh, yeah, I can get 3 leads in Colleyville, 3 connections in Colleyville for $7,800 a month. I was like, are you crazy? You'll be closer to almost like, $15K a month. So I just think it's kind of ridiculous, like how that happens, you know, like,
yeah.
And so your advice is there's other real solutions out there that you don't have to do that. You have to create content.
Yeah.
And like, you know, which apps do you see that are doing well right now? Like Instagram, TikTok, is it all or?
Yeah, I think that the key to all of them is consistency. So unfortunately for all the agents out there, there is no magic pill.
Yeah.
You know I have a good friend and he's blown up his TikTok channel, mm-hmm. but there's a but. Most of those people, I mean, he's got people coming through there all the time because he just got super consistent, put out a bunch of content, but a lot of them are 12 to 18 months out.
Yeah.
And so the way that I solve it is our job as a realtor is you have to make 20 contacts a day. I don't really care how you do that. Mm-hmm. And there are some really amazing ways. Instagram will work, TikTok will work, YouTube will work, but you still have to pay the price to create enough content that's consumable, that keeps them there. And you have to do that long enough that the funnel will start paying off for you. Mm-hmm. Well, most agents will stop doing all the consistent things and they go do that. And they basically fail before it pays off.
Yeah.
So you got to do the 20 every day. And I don't care how you do it. You know, you could if you have a huge sphere, you could go get 20 contacts a day that way. You could do it through paid ads. You could do it through prospecting lists. You could do it if you had enough leads through social media. There has to be enough contacts. Mm-hmm. That's the thing. Nobody wants to say. Everybody wants to avoid. Almost every single thing that you see from real estate agents online that are selling courses, they teach in marketing. You sell the transformation, not the pain. So they literally say, sign up for my course and I'll teach you so you can make 6 figures without door knocking, cold calling, or doing open houses. But what they don't tell you is that they door knocked for the whole first year of real estate. Mm-hmm. Or they were investors already and they had a bunch of income coming in while they waited 6 months for their YouTube to kick in. So it's misleading. It's like lose weight without exercising. Yeah. Like that's the marketing formula, and there's usually a whole bunch of fine print behind it.
Yeah, no, I'm seeing a lot of like a lot of YouTube for real estate. You don't have to do anything, and It's just like, no, you have to do something. You have to be consistent. Because the thing is, I mean, if it was that easy, everyone would be doing it. And I mean, I think you've seen how many people have gotten into real estate. I think we're almost at like 70 to 80,000 real estate agents in DFW alone. So what is your advice to all these people that, it looks easy, because we are there's the most people that real estate is a revolving door. I think people come in, they think it's going to be easy. They watched Ryan Serhant, they watched a YouTube video, or they watched something and they're like, oh, I'm going to get in, but then they're out. So what do you say to those people? For me, I don't know if this is the right advice. I kind of give them my scenario where, 3 years of being consistent, putting in the works, making the contacts, and being consistent. That's when I saw results. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There was many times where I was just like, man, just one closing a month. This is all I need. You know what I mean? When you start off.
Yeah.
And you're at that time, I was looking at the Chad Smiths, the Don lawyers, and I was just like, how do these guys do it? And all it was you guys had the systems in place. Yeah. You guys were consistent, and it was really that. And there's no magic formula, but it's just consistent hard work.
I agree with that. And I think that the number one thing you could do is find someone who's actually done it. Mm-hmm. So, I was at that same brokerage for 17 years. Well, they wrote the book on how to become a millionaire real estate agent. Mm-hmm. And that book was there the day I got my license. And it was there for those first 3.5 years that I struggled and struggled and struggled. And there were classes that were being taught during that time that I went to, but not only myself, but almost no one came through any of those classes and went on to build a huge business. But the minute that someone who had actually done it stepped in and started teaching those exact same classes, all kinds of people came up through that training and went on to build really great businesses. So the way I describe it is, if you were in martial arts and you wanted to become a black belt, you would not go find a white belt to get you there. Mm-hmm. That's the definition of insanity. Yeah. And so for new agents, every single broker that they talk to is going to say, yeah, we have training. My question would be, what's the top level that the agent that's teaching the training has ever operated at? Yeah. Because they can't teach you how to go past that. Yeah. And so I would find an environment that's consistent with someone that has already done what you want to do, and then go copy them.
Yeah. And I mean, I think it's simple, right? But the thing is we see a lot of real estate investing and all this stuff. Social media makes it really easy for anyone to just put real estate investor or multi-million producer. But what does that mean? Does it even mean anything? Have you actually done it? And a lot of people right now, they're trying to sell courses, and what do? They just go and stand in front of $1 million houses and kind of give those $1 million tours, but have you actually even never closed $1 million house?
Right.
And so what are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's validity. You know, I'm a validity guy. The mentors that I have chosen in my life, I went and looked to see what the evidence was in their life. And so I think that we have to be that. I think the consumer is becoming more like that. You know, it's amazing how much business we get now just because we do have 300 5-star Google reviews.
Yeah.
You know, and then you go to our Zillow profile and you can see that there's thousands of sales that are in there.
Yeah.
Well, we should be that way as agents.
Yep.
And yes, there are all kinds of courses, but the way I'm wired, I actually want to even see. I want to see what's the life behind this person.
Yeah.
Because you're going to end up looking like the people that you follow.
Yeah.
And so that's how I look at it.
No.
I want to see the evidence.
Yeah, and that brings up a really good point. You know, I think passive income is, you know, amazing, and everyone's goal is to get to passive income. But sometimes you got to put in the work before the passive income comes. You know, like, you know, you built all this business. Now people come to you because they're like, oh, Chad, we know you're successful. We know you've built teams and stuff like that, and you've done multiple closings. That's why now you're at a point where you have passive income.
Right.
But if you try to go to the passive income before you actually put in the work, I think you kind of miss the, you know, like the goal. You're not going to get the regular income from the closings, and then you're not going to get the passive income either. So it's such a double-edged sword because, you know, passive income is great, but if you can't put in the work before, you're never going to get the passive income.
Yeah, and in a way, no passive income is not as passive as everyone thinks.
Yeah.
You know, rental properties. I know people that own a bunch of rental properties, and they manage them.
Yeah.
Well, that's not passive.
That's not passive.
And if we were to head into an economic environment where the job market got really soft, that's not passive income.
Yeah.
You're going to have to pivot. You're going to have to do some things. Same thing could happen with Airbnb. You know, my strategy on Airbnb is if I buy that as an Airbnb, it has to cash flow as a regular rental as well.
Yeah.
Because I have to anticipate what could happen.
Oh, 100%, especially with the 90% of Dallas Airbnbs being shut down and stuff like that.
Yeah.
The talks of it.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's possible if a city flipped on it, you know, what did you think ahead on that? Yeah.
No, that makes sense. And so, you know, talk about y'all's most recent successful year. So I think 2022 was probably a record-breaking year for y'all.
Yeah, so 2022, what changed in 2022 is that the Chad Smith team did well, but then we began to grow our network.
Yeah.
And so, you know, what was a 12-agent team is now, you know, 50 people strong and adding people daily. And so 2022 was a big transition for us because if you add it all up, the whole network, we did more than we've ever done before. But we also were really quiet in 2022 because we were building the course.
Yeah.
And so 2023 is fun because we can actually share it with people now. And it was a big journey to put it all together.
You know, that's amazing because now it sounds like more people are coming because they come and join your network and they get access to that. So how have you put it out there? Like, is it just word of mouth, or are you openly talking about it? Like, how have you gotten the word out there?
Yeah, so up to this point, it's only been word of mouth. We actually didn't even start sharing it word of mouth until January of this year.
Wow.
Yeah, and so over the next couple weeks is when we'll begin to roll out digital strategies and start driving traffic to it.
Yeah.
But up to this point, it's just reaching out to everyone we've met here locally, and it's been awesome to show them and then see what the responses are.
Yeah, people you enjoy working with, and I mean, like you said, and the approach that I like the best about it is because, you know, I think what's most amazing about it is like, hey, you don't have to come over here. Like, you know what I mean? If you're happy where you're at, there's a benefit if you do, right?
Yep.
But there's another way that you have access to it. And I think that's kind of like a really like, you know, like a humble approach versus like, hey, I'm only going to let you in if you're with me and it directly benefits me. It's like, no, there's another way that you can get access to it as well.
Yeah, I like that too because, okay, so we're all independent contractors.
Yeah.
Realtor, we don't like being told what to do. I don't like being told what to do. And so, and I also don't want to have to sell anything. If you're a successful realtor, you don't sell anybody anything.
Yeah.
You're a fiduciary. And so you get to the top by putting your client's interest ahead of your own. And you always do the right thing for your clients. And when they realize that you're willing to do that, that's when your business grows.
Yeah.
Most agents miss that.
Yeah, because they're thinking about their best interest. Oh, I'm gonna, this house may have foundation issues, but if the client is worried about that, yes, educate them. But if that's something that really, I've seen it happen,
Yeah.
where like you're like, okay, your fiduciary duty is to your client, not to get the sale done. You know
Correct.
what I mean? And like in certain instances, there is stuff that the buyers, they're not aware of, and it's our job to educate them. Like
Yes.
62 windows seals failed. That's more cosmetic, but there's a cost to it in the future.
Right.
And so, do you feel like how important is actual like knowledge of like going to the home inspections and stuff like that for like newer agents, right?
Yeah.
Like it's really tough learning because like not everyone's a contractor, not everyone
Right.
knows that stuff, but like I'm sure when you first started in the business, as you started getting busier, you tried to probably learn, and you wanted to benefit with your clients best. Now I hear some agents don't even go to the home inspections. I'm just like, you got to go to those and help your clients out.
Oh, you made me think of several really good things. One of the modules in our training talks about, if you're a brand new agent, go figure out who the biggest agents in your market, who their home inspectors are, who their title companies are, and who their lenders are.
Yep.
Because that you just skip all kinds of trouble, because the best of the best, they almost all work with the same affiliates.
100%.
Well, if it's a brand new affiliate and they're worried because they don't have enough money and they're not looking out for the client's best interest, and they're partnered with an agent who's brand new and they don't have enough money, it's just a recipe for disaster.
Yep.
So number one, go get in business with the best of the best affiliates. Number two, what we did to solve a lot of this is we have a module on shadowing. So we give you a whole regiment on shadowing lead gen, shadowing listing appointments, buyer appointments, inspections, negotiations, closings from someone who sells at least 3 homes a month.
Yeah.
So that's the second way that we overcome that. And then the third one is we have modules of training where I interview my closing manager who's done 6,500 plus repair negotiations in her career. So we have this entire slide deck on here's the do's, here's the don'ts, here's what to avoid, here's how to do it, here's what not to do, here's what to do. And we give that to people in the training.
Wow, that's amazing. 6,500 transactions managed. I bet she has so much experience. Like she's it's rare to say that you've seen it all, but I'm pretty sure she's almost seen it all.
Probably, yeah.
And so that's amazing. And that just says, what type of leader you are, where you're bringing those people, you're bringing the best of the best into your company around you, because, you and I both know finding good help is the toughest. And so when you find the people that you want to work with, you just want to, you don't want to let them go. So how do you yourself, I think you already answered this by, you never want to get in the way of their success.
Yeah.
But, how do you keep your team around you happy? You know what I mean? Because everyone thinks the grass is the greener on the other side, but, it's really never not. So.
Yeah. So, okay. So we have this vision map, and I've had it for probably about a decade now. And I would say it's a multi-decade vision. And I went to a training national convention once, and they talked about how at the very end, when you're at the very, very top, and you're out of production and you're netting 7 figures and all this, then you go create a charitable organization, and you put it on all your marketing so that the public and everyone and your clients think that you're a very charitable giver. And when I saw it, it was like fingers down a chalkboard to me. Because for me, it's the exact opposite. So what I explain to everyone the day they think about being part of our organization is that the purpose of the business, the reason I'm in business is to give as much money as I can in my lifetime into the gospel. And so the purpose is to give, and those are the predetermined ways that we treat each other. Okay? And from that came the foundation of the Chad Smith team, and then all the other businesses, and then the coaching and training. And so the way that I keep everybody there is we're building that together.
Yeah.
And we can never achieve the goal. We can never stop going further and pursue the goal. So I explain it as we have an infinite goal. So I mentioned I was part of a brokerage that went from on the shutdown list to #1 in the world. Mm-hmm. And what I say is I spent a couple of years asking myself the question, how could that have gone so well? And it was like magical to go to #1 in the world and stand there with that group of people as the #1 office in the world. But then after it was over, everyone just kind of looked around and was like, what do we do now?
Yeah.
And over those next couple of years, the whole office just kind of dispersed.
Everyone went in their own direction.
It fell apart.
Yeah.
And so I'm very grateful for that time there. Mm-hmm. And I look back at some of those mentors, and I'm grateful for them every day of my life. But I ask myself the question, how could I duplicate the journey up forward and then learn what not to do so that it never fades out like that?
Yeah.
And the concept that the principle I came up with is to develop an infinite goal. And so these folks believe in the same thing that I believe in. And so our goal is to just every single year of our life give more away.
Yeah.
And we'll never stop growing our entire life. And so inside the core values and all those predetermined ways we treat each other, I also have permission to be as real as possible with them.
Yeah.
And they with me. So there's, it's not all, it can't all just be rah-rah.
Yeah.
We measure everything. We track everything. We take extreme ownership on if something goes wrong, I'm going to look at myself first. Even if the other person was 99% at fault or 100% at fault, I'm still going to look at it and go, what could I have done to avoid this whole situation? And so combining all that together is how I've been able to retain the top people. And they know I actually care about them.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think you kind of said it really well. When you achieve that goal, you guys hit #1 office in the world. And then now when everyone stepped away, it was just like, wait, was that all real? Because it was like this it was a magical moment. You know what I mean? In the sense, it was a big goal. So what was that decision? Obviously I know how you probably did it. Talk to God, talk to your wife, and taking that step away. But I know that situation probably wasn't easy for you.
It wasn't hard.
It wasn't.
The reason why is I stayed longer
than you should have.
Than I wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
But I stayed because I believe in leaving things better than you found them. Mm-hmm. And I stayed in a leadership role on the Agent Leadership Council mm-hmm. for about 4 years longer than I wanted to show honor to that first mentor that had helped me so much.
That's amazing.
So I knew I had already done that and done it the right way and actually replaced myself and left things better than I found it. And when I left, I had perfect peace. I knew it was time to go.
Yeah.
So
you did your job and you replaced yourself already.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that makes sense. And I think there's so much that is to be said. And I think when you say there's an infinite goal, that's what kind of keeps you guys motivated.
Yeah.
And a lot of people would say obviously, I didn't have the pleasure of knowing you when I was at the office, but people were like, "Oh, Chad Smith and his team, they're really intense. They script practice and but that's just putting in the work. You were just doing the reps.
Yeah.
And so people are kind of scared of work. And what do they say? Oh, those guys are intense. You know what I mean? And they kind of make it seem like, oh, it's kind of like a rough field. You know what I mean? And you guys are doing it wrong, and it's not supposed to be like that. But in reality, it's just you're just doing what works for you guys.
Yeah.
And the success is there. So if it works for you guys, that's great. You don't have to say, oh, that other person is intense or that other person is, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's just kind of my view on it. And, and what would you say is to you, that's just kind of, you guys were just putting in the reps, right?
Yeah. The national average is that realtors sell 6 homes a year. Mm-hmm. And so, there's a really interesting book written by Napoleon Hill called Outwitting the Devil. And it wasn't published whenever he wrote it. He was afraid to publish it. And I only read it once. I'll never read it again. The point of the book was most people are defeated because they drift. And so they drift back and forth of, should I go all in real estate or should I not go in all in real estate? Should I do this? Should I do that? And as long as you're drifting in and out of commitment, nothing will ever go forward. And I don't like living that way. Mm-hmm. And so if someone is committed and they're not drifting, people will always talk about them.
Yeah.
So if they're not talking about you, you're not doing anything.
Yeah. No.
Now, if I had been mistreating people, that would have been something different. No. But he's intense and he works hard. Is that really a criticism?
No, I think it's a compliment. And the results spoke for themselves. Like you said, there's a reason why you guys kept having record-breaking years. It's like, especially when the market's shifting, right? Like, if you go back to 08, 09, take me back to that time where it was like, where the world was shutting down. What was that like? I mean, obviously you had a conversation with yourself. Hey, I'm all in. The first 3 years, they were tough, but now, we have this change of leadership. I'm all in. And what year did you start your team? And when did that decision happen? When you felt like there was like enough to go around, or?
Yeah. So the first part of it in 09, the reason why we have something called the story model. Mm-hmm. And the story model is life happens to you. Life happens to all of us. And then based on how our mindsets are wired at that given point in time, we start to form a judgment to whatever the challenge is. And from that judgment, we create a story. And then our minds go to look for evidence to support the story. And then the story becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Well, in 09, I had been plugged into my church for 4 or 5 years, 4.5 years at that point. Okay. Well, I had been working on rewriting my mindset for that amount of time. So I can remember, in 09, I've got a 1-year-old and I'm driving. I used to live in Red Oak and my office was in Arlington. So I would be driving for an hour every morning and I would come over the hill on I-20, Duncanville, looking into Grand Prairie and Arlington. And you could see for miles and miles right there. And I remember through the meltdown, I didn't watch the news from 2008 to 2012. Mm-hmm. No news. But I would be in the car for an hour building myself up. And I would drive over that spot in the mornings and I would say, I know that there are thousands of people that would sell their home if they could just figure out how. Yeah. And I know how to help them. And so I thank you, God, that I'm going to find those people today. And that was my mindset.
That's amazing. Yeah. I think for me, I remember it was 2020 and, we were going through COVID. Agents started calling me. Yeah. They were like, hey, Nav, we're never going to be able to sell real estate again. And I was just like, what are you talking about? Like, this is temporary, because through everything. And then, 2020 was a record breaking year. I'm sure for you, it was an all time record. Yeah. And I'm sure people had the same conversations with you.
I would love to tell you about 2020. Yes. So before the lockdowns, so the Monday before the lockdowns, I brought my team in the office and I showed them the story model. And I said, this has nothing to do with us. I said, no matter what, people still have to sell homes and in any environment still want to buy homes. And our job does not change. We still are going to go find the motivated. Mm-hmm. And then what I did is I actually walked my team through the Old Testament, and every single time that people of faith were protected through famines. And I read that to them. And then what our story became was, guess what? No one is going to work. And the iBuyers have stopped buying. So we have less competition as a realtor today than we have ever had in our career. And we will have the biggest months we've ever had. So in June of 2020, Jason Breitenstein on my team sold 26 houses in 1 month.
Wow.
And in June and July of 2020, we did $375,000 in commissions 2 months in a row.
That's amazing.
And so we got exactly what we said.
Yeah, well, that's amazing because you go and think about it. It's a mindset thing, right?
Right.
It's a scarcity versus abundance.
Right.
And I like to practice an abundance mindset. There's so much out there,
Right.
and if you think, oh man, there's only one or two buyers out there, that's all you're gonna
That's
get.
all you're going to get.
And if you think it's an abundance out there, the whole world is yours. And it's funny. I was having a conversation with a lender and a real estate agent probably about 3-4 months ago, and they were just telling me, oh yeah, it's really tough right now because in the sense that how do I pitch people on higher interest rates? It's like, you're not trying to pitch people on higher interest rates.
Right.
Like what you're trying to do is find the ones that need to sell. And when you think about it, it's just everyone has a reason, whether they're moving, whether they're upsizing, downsizing, whatever it is.
Right.
People have different motivations. If you start putting yourself in their shoes, well, I wouldn't buy in this market, of course, then no one's a buyer. You know what I mean? But it was just crazy to hear that. And, usually when you're really motivated, you kind of, block all that stuff out. And that's
Right.
kind of what you have to do to kind of get to where you are. So it doesn't matter what's happening, whether the world is having a pandemic, obviously, lead from an empathetic way.
Sure.
But
yeah.
But you have to kind of always see that the opportunities are there. And I think, so you see a lot of people kind of getting out of real estate, getting out of lending right now.
Yeah.
What would your biggest advice be to them?
Well, it's just deciding if they want to make it work, get plugged into the right environment.
Yeah.
You're going to rise or fall to the level of your environment. Yeah. And if you're in an environment where the leadership is scared and they don't have any answers, then you may need to find a different environment. Yeah. We show up every morning and say there are opportunities in every market and there are challenges in every market. One thing to think about if you're an agent and you're thinking about getting out of business, agents are always wishing they were in the last market they were in, right? Well, when we were in the 2021 market, agents were running around saying, this is the hardest market that it's ever been because there's 5 days of inventory and my clients don't want to write an offer $100,000 over the list price. Mm-hmm. Well, the market before that was COVID. And the market before that, everybody was afraid that the iBuyers were going to put them out of business. So it really is, what story are you telling yourself? We'll get out of this and one of two things is going to happen. The Fed's going to pivot and they're going to lower rates and we're going to go straight back into bidding wars and a lack of inventory and scarcity on the supply side and all of those things. Or they're going to keep going and we're going to end up in a real recession where there's a bunch of people losing their jobs, and then we're going to have to deal with overcoming fear. Yep. And in either of those scenarios, there will still be sellers that want to sell and buyers that want to buy. Yeah. And the agents with the right mindset will be the ones that will help them.
Yeah. I mean, we're already seeing a little bit of the multiple offers and everything like that. So, I mean, I think that's what it's leaning towards. So is that, what is your prediction for the rest of the 2023? I mean, it's not,
I don't have a crystal ball. Yeah. It's amazing to me, even having been an agent through the 2008 through 2012 era, it is amazing to me how much the industry hinges on Federal Reserve policy. Mm-hmm. Like, it's pretty amazing. But, I don't know. It is going to depend on what the Fed does with that overnight rate, mm-hmm. which then will affect the overall economy.
Yeah. But the biggest takeaway is just put in the work, and regardless of what's happening, you'll be fine.
Yeah. There may be different ideal clients, mm-hmm. In the iBuyer days, and where there was all that institutional money. I mean, you could find people that wanted to buy 30, 40 houses a month because they had raised all this venture capital. Yep. Like, there's always going to be something. Yeah. Someone to help out there. The average American homeowner has $185,000 in accessible equity, but because of what's going on in the bank industry, a lot of them can't do cash out refis or HELOCs. So there's going to be all kinds of creative financing, and there's going to be all kinds of people working on solutions to help homeowners access that equity, or they're going to start selling to access their equity. So there's going to be opportunities
for sure
in any market.
No, that's amazing. Is there anything about the real solution that you didn't say that you want to share with us? You touched about it a lot. So I just want to give you an opportunity if there's anything that you didn't talk about that you'd like to share with us.
Yeah, the real solution is it's basically our framework on how we built a $100 million team. But we did it. I haven't worked nights or weekends since 2009.
Wow.
So we did it without risking our key relationships or our health or our families, and we did it all with the right priority structure. And so, and it is that environment that has duplicated success in multiple people's lives. So yeah, the real solution is an opportunity for agents that if you're of the mindset that you came across someone that said, if you do exactly what we teach, you cannot fail. And you think, well, if I could just find that person, I would do exactly what they said, and knowing that I wouldn't fail, then reach out to me, because we're not a marketing company. Yeah. We're not selling the transformation without the pain. We're showing you exactly what we've actually done for 18 and a half years in a row.
Yeah. And one thing I will, commend you guys on, you guys kind of don't do the glitz and the glamour and, like, oh, real estate is, selling sunset. You guys just, hey, you're hardworking, humble men, and, you guys are putting in the work and you're reaping the benefits, and you're getting to do what you love, spend time with your family, spend time at church. So right. I really commend that, because, like, in the sense, at the end of it all, like, we're here for a short time. Yeah. We've got to fulfill our purpose, give back as much as we can, and, just really enjoy who we're working with, because, for me, if someone is, it's not pleasurable, like, working with them, or they're difficult to work with, I don't want to waste my time, and it's not going to be long-term beneficial. It's not good for me or my health.
Right. Yeah, thank you for that, and I agree completely. There's amazing people that are there. It's awesome to watch them grow, and also we're just getting started. Like this is a brand new chapter, and like I said, people are joining daily, and so I'm looking forward. One of the things I've thought about, I didn't plan on saying this, but my thoughts on it are, there's a Chad Smith out there. A couple of my good friends that are just super awesome people. Yeah. And they took a hold of really good training in all these different spots that I've gotten training from, and they've done amazing things in their family, in their faith, in their businesses. And so I'm looking forward to meeting those people.
Oh, that's amazing. And I mean, we didn't really touch on family and stuff like that, but I mean, just from our talks, I know that's really important to you. Is your family your big why? Well,
yes, but even more than, like, I have to put God first. He's the author of family, and so without that relationship, I wouldn't know how to be a husband, and I wouldn't know how to be a father. And so my closest relationship in my life next to God is my wife, and my closest relationship in life next to God and my wife are my 4 children. Amazing. And so I put them first, and then I get to work and I put my team first, and then we put our clients first. And when I do that, everything just keeps getting better and better and better.
Yeah, that's amazing. Is there a quote you live by?
I would say that, the way that I live is, no matter who you are, when I meet you, I think to myself, 3 John 2, and that is, beloved, I wish above all things that thou mayest prosper and be in health, even as thy soul prospers.
It's amazing. That's amazing. Well, that's pretty much it for today. I just want to thank you. I wish you all the best on the real solution in your real estate business.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Congratulations on all the success, and we look forward to the journey.
Awesome. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Yeah, that was awesome, man. That was awesome, man.